G'day guys, Clint Adams here with Darren Ferber from Antelco, and today we are recording episode number, throw me a number, DK, episode number 9 of The Full Landscape. Very professional operation. Darren works for Antelco, but he's got 30 years experience in the irrigation industry on all sides. So irrigation design, irrigation installation, product development, product management, sales, and marketing. So this is a bit of a technical one for all you irrigation nerds out there. I'm looking at you, Ask Ervo. Hope you enjoy it.
Y'all ready to turn it up tonight? If you really want to fly, hands in the air, let the music fly.
So obviously we're recording it as a podcast, so it's important to make sure that you got your microphone near your mouth.
Yep.
And if you don't, you'll find DK will reach over and like start sticking it in your mouth, whatever else.
I
So
removed my glasses because I can see that far.
yeah, well, I really need your voice more than your sight at the moment. So thank you for joining us.
No
I was actually quite excited when Matt suggested you coming and chatting because I hadn't really thought about it. We hadn't thought about suppliers as such, and Antelco is such a I guess a big part of our company, and the fact that we're big on SA manufacturing, I thought it would be good to have a chat. And then I started looking into your resume, obviously, you know, your pedigree of where you've worked, and I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of stuff to cover here. So I guess for the audience that are listening, if you want to give a brief introduction about you and what you're currently doing.
Okay, what I'm currently doing is product and business development management at Antelco.
Yep.
Antelco is a South Australian-based business with operations in the USA and the UK,
Yep.
and I work on the strategy and development for those overseas markets as well from here, and get exposure to pretty much irrigation globally for micro irrigation. So get to see a lot of different things.
So when you say micro irrigation, can you just expand on that? Like, what does that cover?
With Antelco's background, it's predominantly been a micro irrigation supplier of, and I've heard you use the terms, we're a good poly fittings business.
Yeah, okay.
Where we do a lot more than just poly fittings too. We do a lot of different drippers and sprays and sprinklers and valves.
Yep.
And a whole range of different systems, but they're based upon drip and micro irrigation for garden beds.
So micro being what, 32 mil and below, but more 25 mil and below?
32 mil and below.
Yep.
We have all the ranges that are in Australian standard fittings.
Yep.
And then when you go to the overseas markets, they extrude at different diameters.
Yeah.
So they'll talk about 20 mil outside diameter,
Yep.
16 mil outside diameter.
Yep.
You'll see the confusion when people in the store come and ask for drip line.
Yep.
And the drip line is, different internal diameters.
Yep.
So we have a range of fittings called DB fittings.
That's, I guess, a relatively new range, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So a product range like that. So you take care of business development and product development.
Correct.
Or you're involved in that.
Correct.
So business development, going out, seeing potential clients and existing clients and talking about product and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Obviously, the majority of the world probably understands business development.
Mm-hmm.
What does product development look like? Like, what's the process for that? Do you identify a need in the market and then follow it down, or?
Yeah, we got to do market research to identify what the next things are going to be, the next gadgets, widgets, and
you have to invent them in some ways. Like,
yeah,
it's not always.
yes.
It's not always identifying it. It's actually.
No, I'll give you an example. Back in the days that I worked at Toro, with the Waterbird sprinklers, the Waterbird PC, which you might have heard of, it's a pressure compensating sprinkler that's sold into orchards and so on.
Yep.
We prepared a brief for that product, which went through what the performance and the specifications were, but didn't actually say to the designers or the engineers, the product designers, what we wanted. Because if we said we want a blue pen, we'll get a blue pen. And so with that, we prepared a specification, and then they came out with a brand new design that no one had seen before.
Because you didn't give them too much information.
That's correct.
That's a good idea. So, and then I guess a prototype gets made, and then once it gets approved, it goes into manufacturing. And
yes. Yeah, and then it goes for field validation.
Okay, so it won't go straight to market. It'll go to
No.
a specific site. So
Rigorous.
do you have I guess agricultural partners that go test this?
We
for
have
you,
test
or?
sites.
Yep. So they're Antelco's own sites.
No.
You just work with farmers,
We
or?
work with farmers.
Yep.
By the time the product leaves us,
Yep.
we know what the performance is because we've engineered it to a quality standard.
Yep.
We validate it then in the field.
Yep.
So,
And you started. So I looked at your LinkedIn this morning. You started in 84 at Hardy,
correct.
and then obviously that morphed into Toro.
Correct.
Is the product development happening at a faster pace now than it was then, or were a lot of the product developments in irrigation, were they more in the 80s and the 90s, and now we're just kind of coasting with what we've got?
I think we're coasting, but I think the landscape of irrigation is changing very quickly.
Yep.
That what it's going to is examples of China not wanting to take plastics back from Australia.
Yep. So that's quite
recycled
topical
plastic
at the moment.
It's very topical, and it means that we should be looking at things along the line of first pass, like using virgin plastics, then using recycled plastics for
Yep.
product number 2.
Yep.
Product number 3 should be third pass plastics, which has got more rubbish in
Yep.
it. What you see with furniture, you know how you see plastic furniture
Yeah.
and sleepers and things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Like the that grey mottled
Correct.
plastic that
It's made from garbage bags.
Okay, so that's like the things that stop bins from being opened all the way, and the plastic
yep.
stakes and that kind of thing. Okay,
Yep.
so that's like that's the third class of. So
Correct.
there's virgin, and then there's like high quality
Yeah.
recycled, and then there's medium.
That's right.
Okay. And so what do you think that's going to start to impact the manufacturing of irrigation in Australia, because we need to keep our own waste and we need to find a use for it?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's what I
Okay.
mean.
And is that something? So is that the kind of thing Antelco are looking at? I mean, are any of your products able to be used? I mean, you've got stuff like, I guess, valve box lids or valve boxes that don't, I guess, need to be as tolerance.
I'll give
Do
you
you know what I mean?
a topical example at the moment. Is we've just we're releasing our Ceta dripper,
Yep.
which is a take apart dripper.
So obviously for people listening
Yep.
on the audio, they can't see the book that I'm flicking through, but I'm just flicking through the Antelco book. There's a Ceta dripper. It's in here, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yep. All of this information is available on Antelco's website.
Yep, www.antelco.com.
Yep. So that's a take apart dripper. So are you changing the way that you make that? Is that what you're leading towards?
No, what we're saying is the application for that is that instead of using inline drip,
Yep.
you use online drip.
Yep.
You can take the cap apart,
Yep.
which is recyclable.
Yep.
The diaphragm inside causes problems for recycling.
Yep.
Throw that away.
Okay. So
And
you're looking long term. So when these
long-term.
get taken out of a site,
Yes.
they can be recycled.
I'll
So
give you-
traditional drip tube.
I'll give you an example. In the McLaren Vale district alone,
Yep.
42 tonnes of recycled drip line has been taken out in the last year.
And where would that have gone a year ago? China.
China or
Yep.
the scrap heap. Yeah.
Yep. And now, scrap heap, or you have to find a use for
You
it.
have to find a use for it.
Okay. And it's not like standard poly or drip poly. So obviously the poly pipe's recyclable, but the dripper if it's a boat dripper, that's not recyclable.
Correct.
So
because when it's moulded inside of the tube, you can't get it out.
And it would be too labour intensive to cut each dripper out. No one's
Yeah.
going to do that
Yeah.
for the economy.
Yeah.
Economics. Of it.
Economics.
Okay.
But where I'm saying the landscape's changing
Yeah.
in irrigation is on the agriculture side, they're starting to use technology to look at the vigour in their vines. So they'll use drones
Yep.
or satellite imagery and
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
this gets too much water,
Yep.
that doesn't get enough,
Yep.
etc. When you've got a dripper like this, you can actually change the cap.
And that changes the flow.
That changes the flow.
So the drippers that you make, obviously you guys have got a colour-coded differential, so that the 2 litre per hour is traditionally red, and then the 4 litre an hour is black. And the 8 is green.
Green, yep.
If you changed caps, obviously that colour doesn't mean anything anymore, but you don't have to pull
You
the
can
dripper out.
yeah,
can physically
you don't
change
have,
it.
because the problem pulling the dripper out is you tear the poly.
That's right, and then you've got to
Once you tear the
it.
poly, you've got to plug it.
Yep.
And if you've got too big a hole, you can't plug that effectively, and so on. So they're the sorts of issues that we see from product development is really looking, and research and development is actually in the systems that are out there.
Yeah.
And being in tune with what the needs of the landscaper or the grower are.
And is either one of those markets more important to you than the other one, without being disrespectful to a market? Like, is agriculture such a big dollar portion?
Agriculture's a big market.
Yeah, okay.
And we are only scratching the surface as a niche player in agriculture.
Okay, as Antelco. Yeah,
As
okay.
Antelco.
And you're obviously competing with some big companies.
Yeah.
How many staff does Antelco have now? Like, is it a 100-person, 50-person company, or is it? It's
over 100.
Over 100 people, and there's the majority of them are in South Australia, or you've got
spread around the world.
And in sales and manufacturing.
In sales and marketing.
Yep.
Research and development here.
Yep.
Head office is in actually Murray Bridge.
Yep.
And Kent Town is our sales and market, just down the road from you.
Kent Town, the most famous suburb in the world.
That's right, exactly.
I'm going with that. And then do you have any manufacturing out of South Australia, or is this obviously if you're making for American markets?
A small percentage.
Yep.
Some of our product, we've made alliances with our pressure regulators, for example, are US based.
Because it would just be too cost prohibitive to make them because the volume's not there.
Correct.
Yep.
Just for SA, that's right.
Yeah. In the Australian market, is Antelco's sales evenly split across the states, or is it real SA heavy? Because do you find you guys get support because it's SA, or it's more the brand's such a good quality brand that it just sells everywhere?
It's a good quality brand that it sells across Australia very well, and New Zealand.
Yep.
And in export, when I went to the US 2 years ago, it was interesting to notice the traction we had on our logo, and that's how people were picking brand. We knew, they knew.
And you've only been with Antelco 2 years now?
2 years, yeah.
Yep. So you started and did a US trip.
Yes.
Pretty much straight away.
Yes.
So you've been working in the irrigation industry for. I don't know if you want to even think about the years, but
long time.
Well, it's funny. I mean, what DK was? You were born in the 90s. We've talked about that before. Weren't you? I was born in 82. You started working in the irrigation industry in 84.
83.
Or 83. There you go.
Or 84.
Yeah,
sorry, you're right.
Yeah. No, sorry. I've just a bit of research this morning. Yeah. So you've done design. You've done product management. I'm assuming you've done some installation at some point.
Yes.
What's been your favourite of all those things? Like, I saw you were in Darwin as well for a year. Like,
yep.
Was the Darwin market more interesting? Was it fun?
Oh, the Darwin time was fun. It was real fun because it was I went there with Tracy, and it was a fun time of life because we were young.
Yep.
There was no barriers.
Is this BK, before kids?
Yeah, before kids, all that sort of stuff. And it was just an enjoyable place.
And how did that come about? Was it someone offered you a job?
Opportunity. Yep.
So you
just got offered a job. Thought this is cool.
Yep.
Go to Darwin and see what it's like.
12 months.
2 years.
2 years. Okay. And then came back here and started Aquatech.
No. Came back to Toro.
Yep.
Or it was Hardy's.
Yep.
And then became Toro.
Yep.
And with the Hardy and Toro acquisition, that was interesting to notice the change from an Australian business to a US-led business.
And an Australian privately owned business? Or was it a share?
No, James Hardy.
It was still,
It was owned by James Hardy Industries.
Yeah, so kind of a shareholder-style company. But
yeah.
So there wasn't a change there, but it was just the US direction versus the AU direction.
It was interesting times because someone reminded me that at one point in time, James Hardy Industries owned Hanna-Barbera Films.
That's crazy. And how that... I guess when they become more of an investment company than a focusing on what they're doing, then they can sometimes buy random businesses.
Yeah.
So your first business that you started on your own was Aquatech, and that was your own. That's really the only
startup
business that you did.
Yeah.
And that was 15 years or 16 years.
15 years in that. Yep.
Do you? I was talking to Matt about it, obviously. So for everyone listening, the Matthew Irving, who manages this store, who's famous for his Ask Irvo segments, which you've probably seen.
I've seen those.
Matt's first job in the irrigation industry was working for Darren as an Aquatech trainee. So I guess tell us a bit about those times, and it was just you and Matt at times, and
yep.
Was he a good worker?
Of course, Clint.
I'm looking for some goss on Matt.
No, Matt was a very came along at the right time for me.
Yep.
As a trainee, he was very keen.
Yep.
And certainly brought to the business a range of skills that I didn't have, which was sort of open computer analytical type skills,
Yeah, he's
which was good.
Yeah, I understand.
And I think that the what am I trying to say?
So he came along at the right time.
He came along at the right time.
Yep. So you were working on
And
your own for a while.
I was working on my own. I had one other worker
Yep.
who was a real engineer.
Yep.
He was like a methodical
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah, yeah. Not
Dot the I's, cross
Yeah,
the
I understand.
T's,
Yep.
but had to be directed on everything.
Yep.
Wouldn't step outside that
Yep.
scope.
You say draw this line, and he'll say, "Give me more detail."
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So I put Matt through the traineeships that were available at the time, and that's quite
I was
interesting.
going to say, what were they? Like, was there much of an option back then?
No. The IAL had training,
Yep.
but it was in its infancy, and it was sort of led by the manufacturers.
Yeah.
And manufacturers' training is very different to
tell me about it.
to on-the-job training.
Yeah, because that you might get this is a solenoid valve, and you're like, "Yep, that's your solenoid valve."
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell us
How
about
about-
solenoid valves in general?
Correct.
Yeah, I get it.
And that didn't exist. So I took him under my wing in that regard to show him as much as I could of different things and
Yep.
expose him to a lot of different products and brands and so on.
So that's kind of the traineeship you couldn't buy.
Correct.
Like learning from you, obviously,
Yep.
after what at that point, 10 or 12
At-
years.
Yeah, 10 or 12 years in the market.
Yeah.
Yep.
In product development as well.
In
not
product
just,
development,
and
yeah.
irrigation sales as well, like as in over-the-counter sales.
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he actually then blossomed into a flower.
The beautiful flower that we now know as Ask Ervo.
Ask Ervo,
Yeah. And so he obviously, you closed that business down and then moved into.
I went for a stint at
Oh, you went and
Virginia.
worked at an irrigation shop, didn't you? So as an irrigation designer for Virginia Irrigation for another 2 years.
Another 2 years.
So you've done a lot of
but-
2-year.
Yeah, I did
Do you
a...
get bored easily?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So you've got one of those personalities. Probably very similar to my personality.
Yeah.
You just start something. You're like, I'm going to go start this now.
And then I wander off and go down this path and wander off and, yeah, a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Was Virginia, I guess, had you worked in an agricultural market like that previously? Like, was the Darwin irrigation agriculture as well? Or was
Similar,
that more...
but Virginia's very agricultural.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of cultural influences
Yep.
there because you've got Italian growers, Greek growers.
It's very diverse, isn't it?
Virginian, Vietnamese,
Yep.
Cambodians,
Yep.
etc. And
Yep.
they all have their own culture and
style.
the way
Yeah,
and their
yeah.
style that
Yep.
they do business.
And their payment terms.
And their payment terms, yeah.
I've never actually been into Virginia irrigation. I say it all the time. I've got to go there. I've got to go there because Stewie, who works there, I went to school with him. Like we went to primary
Stewie,
school together.
yeah.
So
And I worked desk next to Stuart
Yeah.
for 2 years.
and every time I see him, I'm like, I really should come down there, and I need to make an effort to do it. Do you miss irrigation design now? Like, is it something that you like? Us, obviously, you were here talking to Matt while he was doing
yeah.
design before, and I'm like, he wants to get back on that computer.
No. I see the challenges
Yeah.
that are still there in irrigation design.
From a software point of view,
From a software
Yeah,
point
okay,
of view,
so
that
there's
the
still no-
systems aren't
yeah.
really still in place that they could be.
it's kind of sad that I think it's in irrigation in general that there's not enough money there in the globe to warrant manufacturers or software engineers or someone or whatever to develop a product because they're not going to get their return on investment for the R&D.
Yep.
So you think about like irrigation controllers, for example. You look at the technology that's in a mobile phone.
Yep.
Why haven't they built an irrigation controller with the same depth of knowledge or the same power? And it's simply that people aren't going to pay $1,000 to put an irrigation controller in their house.
Yep.
And everyone's not going to have 5 in their house. And, you think
That's
about
right.
that. And it's probably the same with the software. Like, how many IrriCAD users are there? If you could use that as an example in Australia,
Mhm.
how many irrigation design houses are there? And, for them to spend millions of dollars developing better software, they're not going to get their return on it. So,
That's right.
and that was something you were doing when you were, Matt's spoken to me briefly about water, right?
Yeah, Waterite.
So that was
That's an
something-
interesting journey, actually.
Tell us a bit about that.
Waterite was something that came along with utilising technology of GPS.
Yep.
systems, positioning systems.
So this is like 95, 99, like before the 2000?
No, it was about
after
early,
2000?
about 2000.
Yep.
And likened it to the point where irrigation had 4 elements to it: cultural practices, operational practices, the physical environment, and the environment itself.
Yep.
So it had those 4 elements to the business. And one of our first clients was Government House in South Australia.
Yep.
And that was Matt's first call into the business, was GPSing that site.
Yep. He's spoken
Intricate
about
gardens.
it. Yeah,
lawns.
we've recently quoted work there again. They did some work there about a year or two ago, but yeah, Matt was. I think Matt's got a bit of a soft spot for that site because obviously now that makes sense.
I do too. Yeah. And the elements were putting precision mapping in place.
Yep.
And with the mapping in place, the mathematical analysis can be done so that you don't actually need catch cans or cups to go out and test CUs and DUs. Because you know from measuring the variables from an engineering perspective that the system's going to work right.
Okay, so just for people that are listening that are very...
That might be...
Yeah, this is quite deeper irrigation stuff. So CUs and DUs relate to the uniformity of the water that's being thrown from a sprinkler onto a lawn or to a garden surface. Evenly. So, and then they can put a number against that talks about the percentage, obviously 0 to 100% of distribution uniformity. So traditionally we'd put a bunch of cups or cans out, run the system for an X period of time, and then reverse engineer to get the percentage. So you would have just gone, well, the sprinklers are in these spots.
Measure the pressure.
And then you could say what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And there's no other real world stuff that would affect that, like angles of sprinkler body. Like you'd have to assume everything's installed properly.
There is, but you'd have those parameters in the engineering in the first place.
Okay, so that's the software you were developing?
Yes.
Or developed?
I developed.
Yep. And did it just
and
die?
It just died because no one understood it.
And you know what? I think it's probably beyond no one understanding it. I think it comes back to the economics of it. If you're... It's probably not important enough to enough people for them to spend the money on it.
Yeah.
And Matt's very similar to you in that irrigation passion point of view.
Yeah.
Like he's really passionate about irrigation,
Yep.
and he gets really saddened and disappointed by some of the practices because he's like, this is not right. It shouldn't be happening this way. It's not.
Yep.
It's not how it's meant to work. And
Yep.
I'm a bit more practical about it and go, well, it's just the economics. Like no one cares.
That's right.
It's not that it's right or wrong. It's just not important enough.
No, you go to a party, you don't talk about your CUs and DUs.
No, a nice lawn, man. What's your DU?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So, people are more simplistic. They're like, what sprinklers do you use? No one's ever asking, is their DU above 80%? Or, how often are you auditing the system? Or all that stuff. So, I guess...
And in a way, the auditing of the system can take away someone's job that wants to go out and do the... checking of the system and do all the catch can stuff.
Yeah, and that's right. So when you're trying to sell this to the person whose job becomes redundant because of what you're selling them,
there's a
reluctance,
a resistance
to
on that. So anyway,
so when I guess as a kid, no one that I know that works in the irrigation industry wanted to be in the irrigation industry when they grew up because no one knows about it.
No.
What was the grand plan growing up? Did you have another idea of what you wanted to do?
I had absolutely no idea.
Yep. So it was just leave school and work it out.
What happened is I fell into engineering.
Yep.
Through getting offered my second cousin had the job at Reed Irrigation Systems, which was before James Hardy.
Wow.
RS.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'd heard a little bit about the job, and I thought, that might be cool.
Yeah.
So went into it, and luckily the business put me through civil engineering
as part of
associate diploma as part of my working.
Yep.
And that was out at the levels in those days, which looks very different to Mawson Lakes.
Yep.
Yeah. And in the engineering areas there, and civil engineering gives you a lot of disciplines for irrigation design.
Yeah, because I was going to say civil engineering is not the first thing you think of is straight to irrigation design, but there's obviously a lot of crossover there around, I guess, calculations and...
There is. It teaches you a methodology, basically. Yep. So,
and it's funny. The reason I like to ask about what you wanted to be when you grow up is that I guess it's not well advertised about the pathways available in the irrigation or the landscape market for a young person that's maybe in year 10 or year 11 and they're like, what am I going to do when I leave school? I guess there's...
I think we can liken it that the irrigation industry's got to call itself the water industry.
That's right, and not be so
specific
specific.
about irrigation.
I
It's
almost wish there
water.
was another word like. I know this is completely random, but like a better word for the market, like the water industry, so that rather than calling yourself an irrigation shop, everyone's like, "What the hell is that?" Like, you know. But you can say, "Oh, we're a sprinkler shop," and that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's if anyone's got any ideas, just email me.
Yeah.
So you've been in product development for a large part of your.
Yep. And that's my enjoy.
Yep.
That's what I enjoy doing the most.
What is the product you're most proud of that you've been a part of developing?
The Waterbird pressure compensating sprinkler.
So for people listening, that's a staked spinning
Sprinkler.
agricultural sprinkler
for orchards.
with a 4 or 6 mil poly coming off of it that comes into a main line and waters between 2 trees.
Correct.
Yep. Why does that stand out? Was it the people you were working with, or was it, I guess, it really broke through something?
The team we had together, and it broke through the barriers, and it's a global product for Toro.
Yep.
So they sell millions and
How
millions.
many people
of
have
them.
copied that product? Has it been
It's been patented, so they couldn't.
So it's
copy
safe
it.
still.
Oh, it'd be
That's
coming
what I mean.
out of patents.
Because that'd be the ultimate flattery when it starts getting copied. Then you go, well,
Yeah, that's right.
you know,
exactly.
that we've done this thing. What are we going? So, if someone, this is probably a tough one to answer, but if someone wanted to get a job in product development, where would they go first? Like in irrigation specifically. Like what would you if you had to go try and find a job in product development now? Like you'd have to have
Experience.
and
to
we're
do
talking
that.
a decade of experience as well. It's not just you don't just walk into these roles.
Yep.
I think the only other person I know that's in product development at the moment is Frank Nacera at Toro, and he's
Toro.
25 years irrigation industry, probably similar times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frank and I worked together at Harry's, which was Lloyd's, which was
going.
which became Bunnings at Mile
what?
End.
So the building that's out there. Okay, so was it a hardware shop?
Yep, hardware retailer.
Yeah.
And Frank, myself, and another guy, Ralph Campo.
Yeah, I know Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph.
Yeah. He's working for a company called ProMet last time I
That's right.
I remember. I think he's been in Italy recently.
We used to think it was great selling pop-up sprinklers on Sunday to the Joe public.
Yeah.
And we'd go through pallets and pallets of sprinklers.
What were you selling back then?
Lawn Genie.
Yep, which is what owned by
525s.
Hardy then.
Yeah, they're owned by...
Was Hunter in the market then?
It was HR Products were distributing the...
And was
Lawn
that
Genie
was CSS around back then? Was that like
Yes.
it was CSS and HR Products?
Yes.
Was Hunter around then in the South Australian market, or they just hadn't broken
Only
through?
had the PGP.
That was it. There was
That
no
was it.
PSs or
No, nothing else.
PSUs now.
Yep.
That's crazy.
I just remembered
it's interesting because a lot of there was obviously a turf and irrigation shop over there near there, not long after there, and some of those guys, I think most of them, like Chris Simpson and did Chris work there?
Chris worked at...
T&I?
T&I.
Frank worked at T&I?
Yeah.
So, the T&I franchise, but a lot of people probably don't know this, but I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for the T&I franchise.
All right.
Because Frank Farella and Sergio Brea, who were the partners in the T&I franchise at Newton, hired me as a stock assistant in 2005 or
Lovely.
earlier than that.
Yep.
And then that obviously
And that
turned
was your
into
break.
this. Yeah, that was me getting into the irrigation industry. I didn't know about it. Similar story. My friend rang me and just said, hey, they've got a job going. I was running a pizza shop at the time, and he said, do you want to come and work in this irrigation? And I'm like, what's irrigation? And then, it was my decision making was that I didn't have to work nights. I didn't have to touch food, and I was going to clear an extra $60 a week. So I was like, yep.
Sounds good.
Like, I'm cool with that. Plus, I went from managing the pizza shop to being at the bottom of the ladder at the other business. I was like, this is sweeping floors and filling shelves and all that kind of thing. Do you read or do you listen to audiobooks or do you listen to podcasts?
I'm a music man.
You're a music man?
Love music.
So if you jump in your car, you won't be listening to the radio. You'll
Spotify.
And you'll just
straight on Spotify
straight away
and listen to albums and
What
music.
give me an example. What are you listening to right now?
Talking Heads,
Yep.
Chainsmokers,
Yep. And you just keep listening and
Yep.
listening and listening.
Dua Lipa.
Spotify's so good.
Yeah.
Like, I've only discovered that recently
Yeah,
because
it's
we're
great.
doing so much audio.
And there is podcasts on there.
Yeah.
I just haven't listened to them. So
I think you'll get the bug once you start listening to, if you find an audio from someone that you really like, Someone was saying, Jamie was talking about something on the news the other day, and she's like, "Did you see it on TV or the news?" And I'm like, the only TV I catch is if it's on because Celeste's watching it, and I don't listen to the radio in the car at all. I've got either an audio book playing through Audible, or I'm listening to, say, Gary V Audio Experience or the MF CEO podcast, which is pretty cool. What trends are you anticipating, or are you seeing starting to develop in the irrigation industry at the moment? Is there anything that's glaringly obvious that you think that's about to change? Or
I think for Antelco, the challenge is actually becoming more a provider of systems which could get us into the control area of the business.
I was going to ask you about control because I said to someone yesterday, I said to a manufacturer, a representative of a manufacturer yesterday, that they've lost the controller market. It's finished for them, and they need to start concentrating on making better sprinklers. Because I believe that the controller market's going to become commoditized to the point where there's no profit in it for any manufacturer, because homeowners will be able to make their own controllers using smart devices or a YouTube video or whatever. So start concentrating your dollars on making stuff that's hard for people to make at home, and do that as best as you can, because that's where you're going to win.
And the key to the controllers is to have data in there that's relevant to the end user. That's
right. And as soon as you're saying that, you're thinking deep data.
Yeah.
Which these guys still don't care about.
No,
it's got to be the relevant data.
And the end user won't care as long as their sprinklers don't turn on in the rain.
When it's raining. Unless you listen to Ask one of Ervo's knowledge bombs. If it's not a lot of rain, you still want to water.
Yeah.
So he probably learned that from you. Yeah. So what is the next step for Antelco off the back of that? So you're talking about being are you starting to think about controllers? Is that something you can talk about?
It's not something that the business as such.
But it's in your mind?
It's in my mind, but it's not something that the business generally is thinking about.
Yep. Because they're a plastic water transfer product company.
Correct.
Kind of thing.
Injection moulding company.
That takes water from A to B. Yep.
And we do those things. The closest we've got to it is the easy valve. Yep.
So an easy valve, grab it. Obviously people that are watching this on YouTube can see that Darren's just grabbed an easy valve 4. This is a product that I have not been a massive fan of, so that Darren will hate me saying that, but
no,
it's
not at all.
It's my traditionalist.
We internally have issues with the design of this.
It's not just the design. I just feel that it's kind of trying to simplify and retailify what's traditionally a quality trade practice.
You know what I said when I first came to Antelco and saw this. The wires out there.
So anyway, for people listening, it's 4 micro solenoid valves in a plastic box,
which takes away the need for manifolding.
Yeah, so it's manifolded, it's ready to go. You screw your water source in at one end, and then you've got 4 outlets that you can run off an irrigation controller. So it still runs off 24 volt. You still need an irrigation controller.
There is a 12 volt option for battery.
Ooh. So and what would you
9 volt battery?
You'd run either a node or a Rainbird WPX.
Correct.
So okay, cool.
But the concept is that.
So this is 1.0.
Yeah, this is 1.0.
Yep.
And think of this. If you had that in your landscape, you'd think it looked pretty ugly, wouldn't you?
Well, it's quite small though. But yeah.
It's quite, yeah. So why wouldn't you make it look like a landscape rock?
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just something like that.
Or a mulch lid kind of thing. Yeah.
But thinking laterally through it, we've made it in a valve box lid because people always...
Because it's exactly what you said, make me a blue pen.
Yeah,
so they've said, make me 4 valves in a valve box, and they've made you 4 valves in a valve box.
That's what we got.
Yeah.
So and there's nothing wrong with that. The product's engineered well, and it serves a purpose.
Do you sell many? Comparative... I mean, I don't even know what you can measure that against.
In Europe, we sell a lot.
Yeah.
And the reasons why is because it's more fit for purpose for their market.
Yep.
They have lower flow rates.
Yep. Because they're a very low flow valve, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a low flow valve.
Yep. So Antelco, I love the brand. I've sold, and this is not a paid advertisement, just so that we're very clear. Darren is here because I wanted to talk about his history and the products, because I think they're a great product. I guess I've witnessed the double bar come to market. I've witnessed the takeoff elbows come to market, and obviously the clips were around before my time. just a brief spiel about the products. The plastics. Tell me why Antelco is a better brand in your words. I've obviously flagged my flag for how much I love it, but about the plastic and the manufacturing process and the sharpness of the barbs and all that.
There's plastics and there's plastics.
Yep.
So in our range of single barb fittings, they're made of polypropylene.
Yep.
Right. Acetal is what our double barb fittings are made out of.
What about the takeoff elbows? They're polyprop.
The takeoff elbows are polyprop.
Yep.
Yes.
And acetal.
Yep.
This is all.
And if you're never sure, we always in our technical catalogues we'll always divulge that information of what they're made of.
More technical than this, or are you talking it's in here somewhere?
No, you think you should.
So I'm just flicking through Antelco's book. This is probably interesting. Like obviously, for people listening, might become a bit nerdy, but I'm curious about it, and we are an irrigation shop, so I just want to understand a bit more about it. So
so the acetal, think of that as a sharp, brittle product.
Okay.
Not brittle enough that it breaks,
but brittle with a hammer.
Brittle with a hammer.
Yeah, okay. Whereas if you hit some poly fittings with a hammer, they
like get
in.
a white bend on them.
Whereas these shatter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, we make the double barb fittings in 1 millimetre increments.
Yep. So I've got 13, 14, 15, 16. Well,
so
if
17. You've got,
it's all right.
We jumped
roughly 1 mil. Yeah, cool.
Roughly one, because
There's
the
no
Israeli manufacturers that's the tube that we were going.
Yeah, so these numbers reference the ID of the pipe.
Yes.
Yep. So 13 mil T is the ID of
13.
So an example of what these double barb fittings would have been used for would be Rainbird were bringing in a 16 mil OD.
That's right.
Which is 14.1 ID internal diameter for those not playing at home.
Yeah.
And these double barbs are really good. It was also said that you didn't need to use clips with these. Is that the case? Or
that's correct.
You sound reluctant.
The reason I'm reluctant is that if people don't put it in a pressure regulator,
then it doesn't work.
Then it will blow off. But
so what pressure do they work at? Like 400?
Up to 300 kPa.
300, and poly's only rated to 400 anyway.
Correct.
So
I've got my engineer's hat on there.
That's cool. Look, if people wanted to go listen to non-engineering, non-specific podcasts, this probably isn't the one for them. And they can go find something on Kim Kardashian's podcast somewhere. But what is a belief that you have about the irrigation industry that most people would disagree with?
Oh, that's a very good question.
I thought of that one this morning.
Yeah, that's a great question, Clint.
If anything,
I think people would assume too much that the irrigation industry is has got all the solutions to it, the dripping and squirting and the.
So you don't think we're there yet?
No, I think the irrigation industry still got a lot of evolutions to occur.
Okay, and whereas companies that maybe manufacture feel that everything's kind of done now. It's just about manufacturing and selling it.
And I don't want to go into different companies.
No, not at all. And that's I'm happy to name and shame people, but it's probably not very professional of you to.
No. But there's companies that are resting on their laurels of what they've produced is what they'll still produce in another.
I see that a lot in the sprinkler market, where people wear a badge of honour that they've been selling the same sprinkler for 25 years, and it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It should be that we haven't developed anything in our sprinkler for 25 years.
Yeah.
And 25 years ago, we didn't have mobile phone technology. Correct. So maybe it's time to start thinking about it.
So, yeah, that's exactly right. So you put forward the point of, mobile phone technology is a prime one where iPhone 8, iPhone 9, iPhone 10.
Yeah.
Do you really need it?
Well, it's not whether or not you need it, but
it's there.
If you want to look cool, you need the iPhone.
Exactly.
Hey, DK, do you use Android or
I'm
Apple?
an Android man.
Android man. Have you been the whole time?
All the time.
Yep. So straight up. So
straight up Android.
That's your engineering side.
Because I'm engineering.
You don't want to be restricted.
No.
You want to
play programs.
That makes sense. I remember when Matt started working for me, I had an iPhone, and I was like, "You idiot with your bloody Android!" Which would have been he's got the similar brain process to you, which is why it works straight away. You would never have known that in hiring him before you hired him, but it was the perfect person to work in that role.
Yeah.
And you would have only discovered that
as he developed.
And then he was giving me so much shit, and then I went to Android, And he's like, you told me you'd never go. I'm like, well, I also said I'd never go on
He
Facebook.
sold you.
And now I have a full-time employee making
Facebook,
content.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, you're
You're
everywhere now.
Twitter?
Yeah, we tweet, but not actively.
No, I'm not.
I don't
Twitter.
believe that the Australian market has enough people on Twitter for it to warrant my time there. And I know that sounds a bit naive, and Gary would get angry at me for that. But if we were in the US market, I'd be on Twitter.
Yeah.
But every time we post to Instagram, I share it through Twitter as well. So
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, DK? Do you agree?
I agree.
There you go. He gets paid to agree.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're in product development. I'm interested to know. Actually, firstly, I'll just ask you: is there a quote or mantra that you come back to often? That I guess over the years, some people have something that when they're feeling like it's all lost, they'll say it's all right, it's this, or when you have a win.
I say the best way to create the best way. I've got to think of the right thing. I've got
Get it tattooed on your arm.
Yeah, better actually. The best way to predict the future is to create it.
Which is very, very good.
It's a Peter Drucker.
And when you go
comment.
deep into it, because
And
even for business, it's smart.
management.
Yeah.
It's a management. Peter Drucker's a pretty famous management guy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But even
best way to predict
it
the
applies
future is
so much for what you do in product development, but it also applies in business development.
does.
I like that. We have an audience, obviously, of irrigation and landscape people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a question that you would like to ask the audience that they can comment under the video about anything? Is there something that you've been lying awake at night thinking, I wonder if they like this product, or if, what do they need? Is there something that you want to ask?
Yeah, there probably is actually. Is the audience looking for, in relation to our product, installation tools to put drippers in?
Okay.
We've produced ones that have come from the Middle East, which are sort of all right. We don't have any in our range except for tube cutters and punches.
If you made a dripper installation tool, would people buy it and use it?
Yeah.
Cool.
And would they need it to be multiversed so that it can use it for different sizes of tube and so on and so forth?
Okay. Well, comment below.
It should be pretty easy.
Look, I'm obviously okay. So you've got the cutter punch tool.
Yeah. So we at the moment for a homeowner, we produce a cutter, we produce a punch to punch a nice clean hole. Yep. But we don't produce a thing to go put it all in one hit. Yep.
I don't want to use an example of who you're referring to because
okay.
I know who you're talking about. I love the tool. Is there anything you want to plug right now? Obviously, you've given us some of your time, and this wasn't a sales thing, but is there something that you guys have that's in your arsenal that you're not selling a lot of, or that you think would make the lives easier for our trade clients? Obviously, I've got a bag of samples up there with cutters and whatever else.
I think I'm just happy for people to try the Antelco products.
Yep.
Our pot stream, which was just released last year, has had good uptake, and it's starting to gain traction. One of the things that we are over other companies is look for the Antelco badge.
Yep. So buy by brand,
because our shrubler, which is our initial product in the adjustable range, has been copied over 30 times around the world.
Yeah. So the patent's finished, or it's just been
patent's finished. Yep. And so you'll get.
They call them Octa 8s and I know Filmac had one.
Yep, they're not the same.
No.
And in fact, I probably can say this. If not, I'll get told off.
It's not the same.
It's not the same, and the Octa 8 was the predecessor to the Shrubler anyway.
Yep.
So
this is 2.0.
Correct.
Yeah. Just because you mentioned it, you do a pressure compensating Shrubler. A question that I had written down before, I didn't have it written down, it was in my head. What is your opinion about PC versus non-PC, and do you have one?
Yes. I actually think that PC drippers are only really required for where you don't engineer your system properly.
Yep.
So in a home garden aspect, if I was using a tank or a low pressure situation or using a pressure regulator, I'd use an 8 litre per hour non-compensating dripper. Nice wide flow path. It's not going to clog. And on mains water, Beautiful. You'll never have a problem with it.
I have a similar belief, and it always amuses me that someone grabs the marketing headline and runs with it, and it's not relevant because. And I've spoken about it before. I think I don't know if the number's correct, and you probably would. That there's only there's a 10% variance from one end of the pipe to the other if it's not PC and there's too much pressure. So like if you had a 2 litre an hour escape line, remember NetFM had a escape line. Yep. It was cheaper, and for residential stuff, it didn't matter. The only time it became a problem is if you were watering grapes or,
that's right,
agricultural, which was going to be engineered anyway.
And we talked a bit about precision in that area of the market, and that's where your pressure compensating can come in and should come in.
So we should have non-PC. We probably never will because economically, no one's going to come in and ask for it. But it was something that I was interested to know.
We have one in our range, and if we were to
a non-PC,
2, 4, and 8.
Yep.
And is
that the C2 one we're looking
it's
at?
an older technology product.
Yep.
But it's we've renamed it AgriDrip Classic.
Is that something that you think people, if they've got like dirty water situations or whatever, they can use because it's more open flow? Not dirty. We still need to have filtration, obviously.
Yes. But see, at the moment, this is an example of marketing where we haven't positioned the product right.
Yep.
We've said it's an AgriDrip standard emitter.
Yep.
What does that mean?
Well, it means standard it's for agricultural as well, from my point of view.
Yeah, a standard, and then we've got a PC or a pressure compensator.
So it shouldn't be called standard.
We've got it in the new catalogue coming out. It'll be on its own page, and it'll say AgriDrip Classic.
Yep.
And it'll have a story about it.
It's amazing the difference, I guess, in the marketing. Thank you very much for coming in.
No worries. Thank you.
Appreciate it at short notice. As with all my guests, they always get short notice because I am the most disorganised man in the irrigation industry. Hope everyone's enjoyed listening. If you've got any questions for Darren, you can email me through our normal channels or comment below any of our social media handles. Antelco are obviously on Facebook.
Yep.
Instagram, they're not. YouTube,
we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube.
Yep. So you'll find them there. Great South Australian manufacturing company. And I was going to say, if anyone wants a sample of any of the things, without being stupid with it, let us know. I know Antelco are always willing to help.
We're happy to provide samples.
Barring posting 5,000 samples across the country. But, within reason, if you are genuinely interested in trying a pot stream and you live in South Australia, we've got samples of the Antelco products here all the time. So hit us up. Thank you.